TrendSynth, where AI meets insight.
All right, let's get right into it. Today we are going to talk all about dopamine, pleasure, and pain. We're going to figure out how we can start to reclaim our focus in a world that feels like it's literally designed to distract us every second of the day.
So here's the big puzzle, right? We live in a world with just overwhelming abundance. We've got food, shopping, news, gaming, social feeds, all of it available 24/7 right in our pockets. But even with all this access to pleasure, things like anxiety, depression, and even physical pain are actually on the rise in wealthy countries. So, what's really going on here?
Well, a big part of the answer starts with this really powerful quote from Stanford psychiatrist Dr. Anna Lembke. She says our smartphones are like modern-day hypodermic needles. They're just delivering these constant hits of digital dopamine all day, every day. And this constant, super easy access, it's literally rewiring our brains.
So, how exactly does our rewiring happen? Well, the key is in this really fundamental principle of how our brains handle pleasure and pain. Let's imagine it as a seesaw or, a balance scale. Okay, so whenever you do something you enjoy, eat a piece of chocolate, get a like on your post, buy something new online, your brain's pleasure-pain balance tips over to the side of pleasure. Dopamine gets released, and you feel good. Now, this is a totally normal, healthy response. It's actually designed to keep us seeking out things we need to survive.
Now, here's where it gets really, really interesting. Your brain is a huge fan of balance. It doesn't like to be tilted one way for too long. This process is called homeostasis. So, to counteract that pleasure, your brain reflexively adds weight to the pain side. You can almost picture these little gremlins jumping on the pain side of the seesaw just to bring it back to level. And that feeling? That's the subtle come down, that little feeling of wanting just a little more after the pleasure starts to fade.
And this, right here, illustrates the long-term problem. See, with repeated, intense hits of high dopamine stuff, those little gremlins on the pain side, well, they don't just jump on and off anymore. They start to set up camp. They bring their friends, they fire up the barbecue, they stay. And what that means is your baseline, your normal, neutral state is now permanently tilted a little bit to the side of pain. You've built up a tolerance.
And this leads to this chronic state that so many people are feeling today, maybe without even realizing why. It's a state where it just feels like nothing is quite as fun or enjoyable as it used to be. And look, this isn't just a fun little analogy. You can actually see this in our neurology. This image shows what we see in brain scans. On the left, you've got a healthy brain with lots of dopamine activity. That's all the bright red. But on the right, in the brain of someone with a chronic addiction, that activity is dramatically lower. They're in what's called a dopamine deficit state. After so much overstimulation, their pleasure circuits have basically just gone quiet.
The clinical term for this is anhedonia, and this is the great, kind of crazy paradox of our modern age. The relentless, nonstop pursuit of pleasure can lead you directly to a state where you can't feel pleasure at all. You've literally burned out your own reward pathway.
Okay, so if that's the problem, and it sounds kind of bleak, right? What's the solution? How do we get those gremlins to pack up their barbecue and go home? Well, it starts with a concept that's pretty simple, though it's not necessarily easy. It's called a dopamine fast.
The single most important first step is to just give your brain a break. Abstinence, taking a total break from your specific high dopamine behavior, is what allows that seesaw to slowly, over time, come back to a level state. It's really the only way to give your overworked reward pathway a chance to heal and become sensitive to pleasure again.
So this breaks down into a really practical three-step plan. First, you've got to identify your specific drug of choice. For you, it might be social media, could be gaming, could be online shopping. Second, you commit to 1 full month of abstinence. And I'm going to warn you, the first couple of weeks can be really tough. That's withdrawal. That's when the gremlins are screaming the loudest. But then, step 3, you just observe. Because as your brain starts to readapt, you will start to notice a really profound shift.
And that shift? Well, that's the whole point of this. It's not about depriving yourself of fun forever. It's about recalibrating your system so you can actually enjoy your life again. This right here is the payoff. Once that balance gets back to level, things that probably felt kind of boring or dull before, like taking a walk or watching a sunrise, or just having an uninterrupted conversation with a friend, those things start to feel genuinely rewarding again. Your brain isn't numb anymore, and it can find real joy in simple, everyday pleasures.
So let's just recap the key lessons from this whole balance idea. First, chasing pleasure nonstop will, ironically, always lead to more pain. Second, recovery really has to start with abstinence. That's how you reset the system. And third, that reset is what allows you to enjoy the simple things again. Oh, and here's an interesting twist. Intentionally pressing on the pain side of the balance with things like a hard workout or a cold shower can actually lead to a much more sustainable and enduring feeling of pleasure later on. Ultimately, the goal is to stop running from the world and to start really immersing yourself in it.
And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. In a world that is so full of digital escape hatches, what would it actually look like for you to stop running, turn around, and fully immerse yourself in the life that you actually have? The answer to that question might just be where you find true balance.